Like seriously, haram for Argentina. Twice now this has happened to them.
ما في حرام ولا شيء, man. They get to win everything all the time.
No, they don't though.
Whenever a small team beats a big team, even if you're the big team, if you're Argentinian, even if you are, I think inside somewhere you're like happy that the big team, like everybody wants to see a giant taken down.
Mm-hmm. No, I
There's
know.
a respect factor. There's a like, oh, yo, you guys did it. Like when Senegal beat France in 0-2, by the way,
Yeah.
I want to throw that
Yeah.
out there as well.
Oh, that one.
One of the big upsets.
Yeah. Like, I think it's like the old, and it's Saudi now. Today, the king gave everybody off tomorrow and then urged the private sector to do the same. Even though it's exam time,
Mhm.
it's and I'm telling you, like I couldn't believe, I'm in shock. I could not believe what I was seeing. And when the game was in like the 90, I'm like, oh, blow the whistle, finish the game, man, finish the game. I can't like because you know how disappointing, and this is crazy, how disappointed I would have been if they drew. like after all
your
that,
expectations got so high in the course of a 45-minute half that it would have all came crashing down. So hold on a second. So you're going to say that now, because yesterday, before this match actually was played this morning, obviously, I was saying that United States-Wales match was the match of the tournament so far because it was a really good match to watch as a neutral.
I disagree.
Compared to the other matches like Ecuador, Qatar, who cares? And then the other matches before that, Holland was just disappointing in my mind. I think it was like, I only watched it because I was awake and I couldn't go back to sleep. But in terms of entertainment value, I found that the USA-Wales match was the most entertaining so far in the tournament.
What was the one in the morning? No, I meant England, Iran. That was fun.
No, that was crap though. That was a decimation. Like, screw that.
Wow. But it was
talking
still
about
fun.
solely based on the fact that both teams were still in the match until the end, and it was a tale of two halves, fine. But still, like, it was still, thankfully, Wales showed up in the second half. I was disappointed for Wales on the fact that they had to score off a penalty. They couldn't score from regular play. But I didn't watch the Saudi match this morning. So
that match of the tournament.
Entertaining wise.
Messi, he needed a penalty too.
Well, isn't that normal for Messi?
Yeah. Well, no, like, and even the penalty, like when they gave away the penalty, apparently this was the same tackle that happened on Maguire on England, and it wasn't given as a penalty. Yeah, it was a bear hug. And when they gave it away, I'm like, oh man, it felt like Argentina got a penalty from like nothing. Like, it really wasn't like worth it. Like, it wasn't like, it was an in-swinging corner and everybody was stressed, but it didn't seem worth it. And then the fact that we were down 1-0 against Argentina for the first half, and that was the goal, like that was the reason, like I still felt gutted. I was like, at least, like, if it's a moment of magic, if it's like Messi just pulls something and does some crazy thing, or Di Maria does some crazy flick and that's what leads to the goal, you're like, all right, okay, like, we're beaten fair and square. But like a penalty like that,
see, I haven't even seen highlights of this yet. I literally just woke up an hour ago, and I'm just finishing my first coffee of the day, and so I feel like the world has exploded. All I've seen is what you guys have sent me in terms of all the different celebrations and stupid idiots shooting off their AKs and that dude ripping off the wall, the door off the hinge. And
I tell you, I was sitting there, and if I didn't have my kids sitting on me, right, so like it was 5 a.m. where I was watching it, and I woke up at around like. I woke up at 5, and then my son woke up at 6, and my daughter woke up at 5:30 because she's the one who woke up my son at 6. And they were like, it was like, you know how like when you watch a game and then people around you who don't normally, because it happens at the World Cup all the time, everybody around you doesn't normally watch soccer, and you're watching the game, and then they're like, "What's a yellow card mean? What's a red card mean? What does that mean? Why?" And like, trying to explain the offside rule. Like,
Good luck.
Nothing is harder than explain. Like, it's hard. It's a hard rule to grasp.
You know what? Some of these official, like, rules officials that they have on television broadcasts, sometimes they don't even know how to explain it anymore. They're like, you know what? I don't know. I'm tapping out of this one because it's changed so many times.
Waseem, so are you proud as a Saudi today, or still?
Well, I mean, look, I didn't score the goal. I didn't score the goal, so it wasn't actually me. I'm definitely on the supporter side. I'm like, okay, like I think about this because I always think about pride, and I think like what makes me feel proud, and the things that make me feel proud are the things that I do. But am I now proud of them? Like, am I proud of the boys? Am I proud of the boys and the effort that they put in? Yes, I'm proud of them. They did a good job. Like and as a Saudi who has watched Saudi in opening World Cup games many, many years, I think we finally deserved a break. we finally deserved a break.
The rest of the world is upside down. Why not us? The rest of the world is upside down. It's our turn.
Like that was what was hard about getting up, because you're like, you get up and you're playing against Argentina, you're playing against favorites, and that it's gonna be like I don't want another France, I don't want another Germany, like I don't want to go down that path again. Right? It's hard, like, to wake up early and then see, like, to get slapped. Like waking up to go get smacked around.
Isn't this worse now because you've always started your tournaments from the bottom? Now you're starting the tournament from the top. So what's going to happen in the next two matches? It's just like, well, we've already run our tournament. Who cares now?
Well, I mean, I think it's like I think the World Cup could just stop right now. We're good. Like I'm done.
Just pause everything. Screw everyone else. Forget it.
Well, but it's exciting. Well, what I thought earlier was like, what hard luck when you get the strongest team in the group first. So like your opening game is against the strongest team in the group, because then that's like, it's guaranteed in bunny quotes a loss. So you're guaranteed a loss, and then that makes it like much hard. Then it forces you to have to win the next two games.
How the hell do you think I feel going into tomorrow?
Man, I'm hoping for like two.
Canada,
2 for 2.
Belgium.
I'm hoping for 2 for 2.
I'm a bit afraid.
Yeah, welcome to my like, welcome.
I'm kind of scared. But I think Canada has a really good group of guys. And I think even if Canada loses, we'll have a good fight in the end. I just don't know how you're going to neutralize someone like De Bruyne. I mean, that guy is it's De Bruyne.
If listeners don't understand, Waseem, can you just fill in the Saudi World Cup history?
I mean, I think
add some context on what makes this even more.
Okay. Saudi's history in terms of the World Cup, the first time Saudi ever qualified for the World Cup was in 1994 at the US World Cup. It was their best run ever. Like, it was their best run. They have qualified for every World Cup after that, after 94's World Cup. And it was their best run. And it's famously known for Serge Lawaran's goal, where he in the round of 16, I think, where in the round of 16, where he takes the ball in the halfway line, dribbles past like 3 or 4 players, and puts the ball in the net, and like everyone loses their mind. And there's a document. They're actually making a film about the goal, calling it the goal.
That was against who?
It was against Denmark.
Denmark.
Yeah, I'll never forget this. Like, it was probably 1994 World Cup was probably the first World Cup I've ever saw. Like, it was the first time I was aware. I was 9, so everybody was watching around me. Like, I had an uncle who was like a real Italy fan, and and it was Roberto Baggio that was playing, and I said like the ponytail, and so it was classic. And I think Valderrama, I think he had like the mustache, and it was a wonderful and it was first time in the States, and the States knows how to put on a good show. right? Like I think like they're definitely the best producers of shows on the planet.
Event production, event
Yeah, yeah.
management.
You're gonna
They
get a
take
good
it to
show when
the
it's in the States. You're gonna get a good show.
Isn't that the tournament where
next level. They
Valderrama
take
did
that shit
that
literally.
ridiculous back heel kick and goal?
No, was that Valderrama? Was that the goalie?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The
That
scorpion
was
kick.
him. Yeah, the scorpion
Um,
kick. That was him.
Yeah, and like that's audacious.
Yeah.
And so then after that, like 94, a nice respectable showing. 98, we play France in the opener, and we lose hard 4-0. And in 2002, we play Germany in the opener, and we
Zidane
lose.
got sent off in that game as well.
I think was he sent? No, I don't think he was sent. No, was he sent off?
Or was it a yellow? He picked a he
Yeah,
did
yeah.
a hard challenge.
I'm sure. Yeah, I don't remember him being sent off.
Violence.
But I remember he destroyed us, and France goes on to win the tournament at that thing. And then in Germany, we get in 2002, we get Germany in the opening game, and they beat us 8-0. And like they end up going for 8-0, and then like we put closely on the map. So like the German like the top scorer of the World Cup is Miroslav Klose, I think he is, or he's up there. And it's all thanks to us. Like
Shukran from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, and our goalkeeper at the time, Mohamed Daia, holds the record of having the most goals scored on him at the World Cup. So he's like no man has taken the ball out of his own net more than him at the World Cup, and so it's been difficult. And so, and even when we had a chance, I think Russia. At Russia, we played Russia first, and we lost 5-0, and that was crazy because that was a chance, that was a hope. Like Russia, like it's not.
Why does Saudi
Germany
keep on getting stuck playing in the first match of the tournament against the host nation? What is going on here?
Yeah, it was like 3 times.
What is this?
I don't know, and that so like now another Arab country took.
Is this like the
over.
world's way of getting back at Saudi for Wahhabism or Salafism, or like what's going on here? Ridiculous.
Well, like the counter is Qatar became the first host to lose their opening World Cup game, and there's a whole subplot in there of Qatar losing and Saudi pulling an upset in Qatar. There's a whole subplot which we don't really want to get into.
Yeah. No, that's when I was waking up and I was getting all these messages from you guys and the other people in my groups, and I'm like, what the hell just happened? Like wait a second. Like, hold on. Let's just get something straight here, politically speaking. Saudi got everyone else in the Gulf to band against Qatar a few years ago, and now they pull off an upset in Qatar.
Well, man, water under the bridge. Like water under the bridge. As proven, right?
Skip and Shannon. Rashed, Skip and Shannon opened undisputed about Saudi Arabia beating Argentina, and Skip said like, oh man, this is the biggest World Cup upset ever, which is why he's predicting the Dallas Cowboys to win the Super Bowl. So, but forget that logic. But like, it's always nice though, just from like the Pakistani perspective, just East versus West kind of thing, or the underdog versus the like. It's more the underdog story for me in this case. It's really nice. It's the brothers, like our neighbor brothers, but it's just the general underdog versus overdog sort of thing is always relatable, right? And it's always, man, I'm kind of down. Like they did it. The little guy did it.
Yeah. And did it. And like really, the game was on fire, man. It was on fire. Like it was just like the goals, the Saudi goals, both of them were like the second goal, he beat 2 players and curls it into the top like court. It's a beautiful goal.
I said this during the match for one of my texts that to win 1-0 Mourinho Euro 2004 Greece Classic. But to score 2 goals is like they're playing quality football at some point. At some phase in the match, they played very solid football that got them 2 goals.
Yeah.
And Argentina, you have to remember, like the overdog, sometimes they panic quickly. England, Argentina, Italy, sometimes if you punch the bully the first time, the bully sometimes kind of buckles.
Okay, I have a question.
And no,
Clearly,
Argentina's no bully. You guys have never
I've already admitted to the fact that I haven't watched this match, so I don't know how it went down. Can you describe to me how Argentina looked? Especially when Saudi was turning it on and
they had the first half. The first half, Saudi didn't get a single shot, and Argentina scored 3 times, but it was all like offside. So and Saudi was playing like I don't know how they did it. Like I don't know how they did it. They were playing a high line, so they were like on purpose, just trying to catch them offside. So they would just like put and like the risk of playing that game is that if one player on the line messes up and stands like it takes like
you don't have to tell me this. I've been watching Liverpool since the beginning of the season. I know exactly what the hell happens.
What the high line happens if you mess up. and so they scored like 3 times. And it was all disallowed by offside. And here's an interesting stat. In the first half, Argentina got called offside more times than they had got called offside in the entire last tournament.
Whoa. Okay, so the offside calls that negated goals. Yeah. Were they controversial offsides, or it's like it's an offside?
No, man. They got these nice like okay.
I know the technology.
This brings us to the topic of the day, right? So this is like what I wanted to talk about today, because last week we had a
follow-up question though for what I started this with.
Okay, but I'm going to answer this one first. It's been a wild ride with FIFA in the last like week and in the last like few years and like with FIFA in general. And so it's been something every day. You really can't keep up. It seems like it's on purpose. And I wanted to talk about like but before I do, one of the things that FIFA wanted to do for this World Cup was make like the calls that are happening on the field, explain them to the fans in like real time. So like, why is this offside? And so they would like, so now they have this like technology that shows like, it's like a little virtual, like video game. It's like FIFA, but with like the player. So you could see why he's offside because his elbow was out or because his like body was ahead of the player. And so it was
shown in the first match with Ecuador and Qatar.
That thing.
Yeah,
they're using that. That is a response to the fans being like, we don't know why these things aren't getting called or why they are getting called, and so that's what they're like was the promise. And apparently, Colina. So Colina is the like, if everyone ever seen, is the Gollum of the refs. And he's the king of referees.
He's the best ref that ever existed in the history.
Ever existed, and like like he's the only ref that everybody knows his name.
And respects. Everyone has respect for him.
Yeah, he's the only one that like broke the thing. People know who he is. And so he's in charge of the refs, like in the world. And he was like, why is every game like 8 minutes long or 10 minutes long, the extra time? Because they're cracking down on time wasting. So if you time waste, they stop the clock. Like the ref stops his clock.
That's why there's been so much stoppage time. I didn't realize they brought something in for that for this tournament. Because the England match, it was like 24 minutes of added time in total. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's why. That's why. And so this has been. So that's like one of the things. So what's your follow-up question before I get into the topic of the day?
Well, I was just curious as to how Argentina was playing because I was just wondering, and this is money related. So I mean, I'm just gonna address the elephant in the room. Was there a payoff? And going into the match in the betting circles, Saudi was plus 2,500. So whoever put money down on Saudi is making some freaking coin today.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting it out there. We're in the Gulf. The tournament's happening in the Gulf. Saudi's playing Argentina. There's money going either way.
Well,
and anyone who was like, let's just try Saudi out just because I'm going to put 1,000 down. Let's see what happens.
The answer to that, I think the answer to that question is how much does it mean to Argentina to like win the World Cup, right? And for Argentina, I think it's priceless, right? And there is no price. So like if it was a smaller team and it happened to be like a crazy game and stuff, and I could entertain the idea. But after having watched the game, like they definitely were trying, man. They scored 3 times and it was disallowed to offside, like, right? So it's not like they weren't trying. And Saudi was definitely trying. Like we lost players like to heat stroke. No, like one guy almost had a concussion. No, I definitely got a concussion at the end of the game. He collided with the goalkeeper's knee and then bounced off the ground. His head bounced off the ground and he was out. And Argentina was still playing, trying to score while that guy was totally out on the floor.
That comes down to the ref to blow the whistle.
I get it, but I also know that that's impossible. Like,
you don't think there was like a special secret meeting that happened? Someone slipped in the back door into Argentina's dressing room during halftime, and it's just like, hey guys, you've been in recession for 20 years. How about we help you out a little bit?
Man, I'm telling you, you got to look at the looks on the Argentinians' faces, the players. But they also did come in. Like, and this is what happens. This is like what happens when you come in and you think like piece of cake. Like this was a foregone, like beating Saudi was a foregone conclusion for absolutely everybody. Right. Like Argentina beating Saudi was a foregone conclusion. Hence the bet, like hence the odds. And that when that didn't happen, right. That's the and this was a great game for FIFA because Saudi winning starts to change the narrative of like the World Cup, because like now it got spicy. Like now things are good. Like now it's like nice, it's fun. There's like the storylines happening. There's things happening. Yesterday's games were a little boring. Or the Group A's games were a little.
No, I still stand behind USA Wales being a really good match.
Okay, Group B's games. All right, fine. Power, fun. The first set of games. But I felt like what FIFA has been doing. Okay. So here's the topic of the day. The topic that I want to talk about, continuing about FIFA, was what they did with the armbands. So you had I want to tie that to something else. But so FIFA's like, no, like apparently the like 6 or 7 football federations, England, Wales, Belgium, whatever, they all wanted to wear the One Love like Germany. The One Love like captain's armband. And they asked FIFA if they could do it, which is also funny, right? And then FIFA said didn't answer until like a couple of days later, until a couple of days ago, right before the tournament. And then they said like, we have our own armbands and our own campaigns that we want you to wear, which is also like how interesting. Just a few days before the start of the tournament, when everyone's going to wear these, okay, you have your own armbands. And if you don't wear them and you wear your own armband, we'll fine you. And then they were like, oh, okay, how much is the fine? Like, okay, we'll pay the fine, sure. like how much is the fine? And they're like, yeah, no, we're also gonna yellow card the player wearing the armband. And if he takes it off, puts it on someone else, we're gonna yellow card that person too. And then they were like, oh, okay, well then we're not gonna do it anymore. Because we can't, like, for sporting reasons, we don't want to, like imagine Harry Kane gets a second yellow and gets sent off and they lose the game. Like that, like, for sporting reasons, they're like, okay, no, we're not going to do it. But FIFA pulling that tactic, like using that move in order to enforce conformity or to enforce what they believe like they should do is like, I think, like, I feel like they're like, truly digging a hole for themselves. right? Like this, because last week we talked about the Super League and how it was taken in a negative like way, but now but like it just gives me more and more of a reason to be like, I just don't like how FIFA handles anything. Like I don't like how they handle these types of things. But one thing I'm actually proud, what I am actually proud of, to be honest, like if like even probably more than the Saudi team beating Argentina, was the Iranian team refusing to sing their own national anthem in protest and in support of the protesters in Iran.
Yeah, I was going to get to that because I saw a headline, because we have to remember that the fact that they did this and it's all over the world on television, when they go home to Iran, it's going to be, some guys are going to disappear. And so I did see a headline. I didn't read the full article, but the headline was good enough for me. And it basically says, Iran players' act of brave defiance puts armband cowardice to shame. Oh. And so, like, I don't know how else you can describe that. Like, their lives are literally going to be at risk when they go back to Iran when this tournament is over because of that defiance. And a few players are afraid that they're going to get yellow carded because they put on a One Love armband because FIFA says, no, man, we want you to advertise this thing instead. We have another advertisement campaign in place that we don't want you to infringe upon, type of thing. But it's what you just brought up. It's another example of FIFA's ineptitude in answering many questions leading up to this World Cup. So I missed last week's episode. The guys were talking about the whole booze thing. And the thing about the booze thing that really got to me was they had years and they had months to force an answer from the Qatari officials. And so this entire time leading up into when they actually gave the official verdict, like a day before the damn tournament started, the answers were wishy-washy and they were pretty much non-existent. It was basically like, we'll see. Inshallah, who knows? Maybe.
Bukra habibi, bukra habibi.
Bukra inshallah habibi. I don't know, we'll see. And so it's just like, you had so much time just to say it. And if you just said it 6 months ago, get all the backlash for 6 months. Who cares? Everyone's forgotten about it now. The tournament started. No one's talking about it.
But then, no, man, like I feel like it's part of the move. Yes, Majid, you're shaking your head. And I think it's because if you do say, and then, you don't sell the stadiums out. Like people don't come and they're like, you know what?
No, I can understand that because then people probably would have decided against getting tickets. But who cares? You know what? Here's the thing. It's not the first time this is okay. First of all, let's go back when FIFA actually forced someone to do this. The Brazil World Cup. Brazil said we're not going to do it because a couple of years before the Brazil World Cup, Brazil passed a law saying that there was going to be no booze in the stadium because of hooligan behavior. And then FIFA forced them to change it just before the tournament started.
Oh, really?
And there's been other tournaments in England, for example, Premier League matches. There is no booze allowed in the stands. You have to drink your booze in the concession area, fine, in the concourse area, but you can't actually physically have your booze at your seats. And I think they did the same thing for the last Euros in France, if I remember correctly, or when the Euros was in France, whatever it was. It's not uncommon for you not allowed to have booze at your seat. Now, so then there's a whole thing where they say, but in Qatar, you can't have it in the regular concession areas, but you can have it in the private boxes. Well, it's similar in a sense. I mean, I guess it's different in a sense as well, because if you're sitting in a regular seat in these other places that doesn't allow booze at your seat, you can still go to the concession and have it there, chug it back, and go back to your seat. But they still have it at the fan zones. So, and really, do you really want to, is it that important to drink a beer while you're watching a match?
Man, that you sound awfully a lot like Infantino.
But seriously, I mean, like, I don't want to, because you know what's going to happen for me personally. I drink one beer, I'm going to be in the bathroom like every 30 seconds because it's just not, it doesn't sit well with me. Like, I'm just going to miss the match anyway. I pay tickets to watch the match, not to like be in the bathroom and listen to the crowd from the bathroom, if you know what I mean.
What was I gonna say, man? Oh yeah, yo, no, the difference is they make a decision and you get on with the tournament. Once the first ball is kicked, once you have the first kickoff, all eyes are on the football. All of other stuff has become forgotten. It's muted, or it's if you force it, you're gonna bring it up, but otherwise it's about the football now, which is why you leave these kind of the major infrastructural decisions up to the last possible second, say FU to them or give them a little bit of concession and get on with the tournament. Because at the end, all of us, even us today, we're all going to watch the tournament. That's become clear.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm going to watch as many Canada matches as I possibly can.
But you know what I've been noticing? I've been noticing that the stadiums, like the seats, they're not full.
A lot of them aren't. I know.
There's a lot
of patches.
I see a lot of empty seats and a lot of empty. Like it's really empty. Like it's not like empty, but it's definitely.
Well, listen, here's the thing. I read a number.
It feels empty. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels empty.
Before this stadium, just before the tournament started, I read a number that said that up until that exact same point for the last World Cup, they had sold 3.4 or 3.5 million tickets or something like that. And the exact same, so this would have been the day before the tournament started. And the amount of tickets sold for the Qatar World Cup was like 2 million. So there was actually a drastic difference as to how many tickets were actually sold up until the point of leading up to like the day or a couple of days before the tournament. So I'm not surprised at all. And there's a headline that I saw that said that USA Wales match, there was like loads and loads of tickets still unsold going into that match. Loads of them. So I don't know if this is a situation of people not wanting to go to Qatar, or was it a situation of visas not being approved in time, or what it was. I have no idea.
No, Qatar is pretty decent for visas. They are very visa friendly for most, like for this side of the world. But there were also for the England match, there were thousands of people who there was a problem with reading the ticket.
Yeah, there was
there was that problem. Yes,
like they were there, but they couldn't get in.
It's freaking Paris Champions League all over again.
That one, exactly. That it happened. It has happened before. That was it. Yeah.
When these things and they're trying, I mean, it's hard to organize like this many people and try to get them in, and you got to get the tickets and you got to get everyone through. A part of me also thinks that maybe it's timing, right? Because like people are off in the summer. People aren't like this is right before the holiday season. Like, so it is the holiday season in the sense that like this is when people like check out, like they begin to start checking out. Like, I mean, I think it's kind of early still for it. Like it's still November. But like by December 1st, that's it. Like we're in like the world in general is in the the world in general, like nobody like, but the world in general is in nobody crucify me, please. But the world in general is in is moving towards like taking time off. They're gonna be back in January. Let's table this till January. That's what's going on in December. So maybe, like as the tournament goes on, there'll be more.
Maybe, but I did hear a number recently that I was really impressed by, and apparently there's been 25 to 30,000 visas approved to Canadian supporters going to Qatar. So good representation by the Canadians. I hope it's true. I really hope it's true. And I hope that most of those people have tickets to the Canada matches for the group stage. I think that'll be great, because here's the thing. When it comes historically, when you go to any type of soccer game that's in a Canadian city that involves a Canadian men's national team, specifically not the women's team, the men's team, because the women's team has always had a lot of support. You end up being BMO Field in Toronto, for example. I went to a match in Montreal against Honduras. Canadian supporters were the severe minority in the stadium. It was insane. I felt like I was watching a match in Honduras, and it was a World Cup qualifying match between Canada and Honduras in Montreal. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? But typically, yeah, you'd have the majority of the stadium being the other team supporters, but it drastically changed throughout this World Cup qualifying campaign. And I'm hoping it translates into, the fear has always been if Canada ever does make the World Cup, how many fans are we going to have in the stadium for those matches? And so this time around, it sounds like we're going to have quite a large contingent of people, which I'm happy about.
I mean, this particularly the World Cup, this particular World Cup, it being for Canadians, you got a lot of direct flights to Doha. You got
from Montreal.
You got also it's winter here. You don't really need much of an excuse to try to leave, right?
To go to 30-degree weather in November. Yeah,
like I don't really like what World Cup 2? Oh, great! Like that's wonderful. And like you can go that you can get once you're there. Like people are going to Dubai, they're going to Doha, they're going to like maybe they're not transiting in Europe. I hope they're transiting in like North Africa. North Africa gets a bit of that love. Like I hope that's happening. There is actually quite a flight that goes, I think, through Marrakesh. There's a nice nice flight. You get a layover for like 2 days or something that you can like hang out in Marrakesh as well.
The Tunisia-Denmark match was really entertaining. It was 0-0, but it was super entertaining. Both middleweights going at it, and it was fun to watch.
It was nice to see. It was nice to see Ericsson. I thought about that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Like, good for him. Mashallah.
No, that's crazy, man. Like, I think.
But he's been performing for United, by the way. He's the best
I know,
but
like he's back at months. When he's back at Denmark, because that like literally like watching the game, like watching him play. I'm like, the last time I saw you in a Danish jersey, things didn't go so well.
You kind of collapsed.
You died. Like you died. You died, man. And like for a few minutes you were dead, and then you got up, and like here you are, like not even like 8 months later. I feel like it wasn't even that long ago.
I want to go back to the corruption part of things briefly, because I don't know if you guys heard about this. But Michel Platini recently admitted to trickery at the France 98 World Cup.
What?
And he said that between 1992 and 1996, I believe it is. Hold on a second. That's possible. He was involved in a plot to ensure that France and Brazil would not meet in that tournament in the knockout stages till the final. So what they set it up so that and I think this was the beginning of seeding, possibly, or like some kind of seeding situation, where it basically said that if France and Brazil ended up finishing first in their groups, they would never meet until the final, because it was the dream final that everybody wanted, with Brazil being Brazil and France being the host country. And they wanted to ensure that was going to happen. And he's like, it's not the first time this has happened at international tournaments organized by FIFA or UEFA.
Whoa.
And I'm just really surprised that this story, because I read this story on The Sun. Now, keep in mind, it's The Sun from the UK, so whatever. But I haven't looked to see if it's in any other newspapers. However, so we keep on harping about the corruption involved with FIFA, UEFA. We can extend it to the IOC if you'd like as well, because the International Olympic Committee is severely corrupt as well. My question related to this, though, is we accept the fact that there's match fixing. It's happened throughout the history of football and other sports. In the end, do we really care? Because it ends up giving us like matches like this, the France 98, for example. Like, we're just people sitting there watching the match. The real people that really get screwed, obviously, are the players who feel like if this didn't happen, we could have had a chance to win this damn tournament. But in the end, in that tournament, who else did you want to see in that final in reality?
Man,
like, that was a great generation of French footballers that you're like, shit, we need to see these people playing in the final. And who else would they play in the final but Brazil?
But this is where the issue is, right? Like, I mean, that's what you just said is the argument for the Super League. And the issue is that, like, and I think this is probably what the issue is with all of these things. They're monopolistic, like, organizations, and so they believe that they know best, right? And they act out of a sense of like of virtuous protection of the integrity and of the sport, or the history of the sport or whatever. And they're very resistant to change, and they're very last week PK retired, and he gave an interview the next day where he was talking about how football really needed to change. And he threw out some fun ideas. He was having a fun idea day. And one was the game should be 60 minutes long. He's like, my kids cannot watch a full game. They can't. This is the children have changed. They cannot sit through a full game. And considering the games are now are 110, 120, he's like, make them a hard 60, ball goes out of play, stop the clock.
That's so American.
And then he said this other really fun idea is that if you go to extra time, the way you deal with it is every 3 minutes, both teams lose a player. You just keep going until something happens.
Well, that's what they do they don't do that exactly in the NHL, but in the NHL, in overtime, it's 4 against 4, not 5 against 5.
Well, I love these ideas that are and I know that FIFA, and Platini was one of these dudes, because Platini was against goal line technology, right? He was against literally anything that would have made the game more fair. So I'm not surprised that he was involved. And then
I wouldn't be surprised if you look back. If you look back, he probably would have been against the original 3 substitute rule as well when that came in.
Yeah, they want all the players to collapse because that makes for good TV. Yeah, that makes for good TV.
Yeah.
Right. I like the idea of you have unlimited subs that you can roll. Kind of indoor soccer where you can take a guy off, bring him on, but you can still bring that guy back on again, right? That doesn't mean you're off and you go and you sit down and you're done.
All of these suggestions are North American sports-based suggestions, and I don't like that one for football. I'm actually good where if it becomes uniform 5 subs for every tournament, regardless, in every league across the board.
I would like to see some pilots. I'd love to see this piloted on the higher levels. I'd love to see a tournament where this is going on,
Man, we've had 100 years of the old school. Let's try what happens before we shut it down. Let's just try it once and then we'll shut it down. Let's see if we can do the November World Cup. Why can't we do this?
Yeah.
They only accept change when it's convenient. They don't want change otherwise.
Well, when it's forced down their throat, but even their tactics, what they've shown in the last little while is that they've gotten smarter in how they combat the way players, FAs want to so. If you want to use the World Cup, and there's an argument for this, right? If the players want to use the World Cup to make political statements, you got to ask, is it within their right to do so or not? And I think that's up for debate. I actually think that's up for debate.
Well, that goes to that goes
what
to
is a political statement, right? Not singing the anthem. Is that a political statement or not a political statement?
Right. Well, it all goes back to that whole thing where a lot of Facebook freaking black hole pages where people are keep politics out of sport. And I'm like, isn't sport politics within itself?
Well, and even the armband, right? So but also even these are, in a lot similar to what happened to taking the knee. It was a thing when you weren't allowed to take the knee, and then when it becomes standard operating procedure, and that's how they that's how they combated it. And it's the same thing with the armband. And this is kind of the problem. No room for racism. All these campaigns. Once the official, once they leave the grassroots and they become the official slogan of the World Cup, they lose all their meaning and power. And so maybe it's inevitable. Maybe there's no way. And not good on FIFA. If I was the managing monopolist that's in charge of this, I would do what FIFA does. I would definitely play it the way they do. I would do my own campaign so that you can't do your own campaign. And it's for the same thing. It's still an anti-discrimination campaign. right? Like their anti-discrimination campaigns, just as the One Love thing is a kind of anti-discrimination campaign. And like apparently, like the Belgian national team has love written on the back of their jerseys, and tomorrow you're going to see them cover it up because they told them you got to cover that up. Like we can't have love running around the field, like which is actually it's funny because
it's the implication of which type of love that no, we can't do it because we're in Qatar.
But I mean, I think, yeah. Well, I don't know if it's just because it's in Qatar.
You honestly think if this was happening in a South American country or somewhere in Europe, that armband, that ruling that FIFA came down, so you're going to get yellow carded, it wouldn't happen. It would not happen. It's because it's in Qatar. Flat out, point blank. It's in Qatar, and nobody wants to touch the LGBTQ plus issue related to the Middle East in general. They don't want to do it. FIFA does not want the backlash.
I don't know, man, because I'm gonna bounce back on this because, like, I mean, you also have to think about like who's running these campaigns. Like the One Love campaign isn't like also is not a grassroots. Like this is all like a distraction. Like it's like the FA, right? It's the FA, and the FA, like they are like another version of FIFA. Like they just have a different jurisdiction, but they're another version of FIFA. And so when like one type of monopolist fights another type of monopolist, of course they're gonna be like, no, my monopoly is stronger, and like that'll happen. And so I think that like even like this is like it can be. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying it can be posturing on the side, and like we see a lot of this. Like that's literally like posturing on the side of like the those organizations to just be like. Yeah, like, you know, I mean, for whatever reasons that people, you know, posture and do things to gain support so that they could be like, oh no, the FA is great. It's such a great organization. Look at what they do.
Why love? Why not labor? Like, why is this the love? Like the LGBT rights trumping sort of, I'll say
the labor issue.
Labor rights.
The labor issue, yeah.
Labor.
Yeah.
Like, why are we... Who makes this hierarchy? Where did this come from? Like I'm saying it's
LGBTQ plus specific because the armband itself had a rainbow on it, and that's the universal symbol.
And I'm saying who picked this issue to highlight? Why not all the other issues that like the West loves to talk about? There's a myriad of issues and controversies with Qatar. Why this one is the one that we are highlighting right now?
Because I mean, I understand what you're saying, because going into it, it was a whole bunch of different issues that people were talking about. So they were talking about the migrant worker labor issue and all the people who sadly passed away in building Qatar for the World Cup. And then the LGBTQ plus issue was also one of the ones discussed as well. As for why, I don't know, like maybe it's easy, maybe because there was a larger symbol that's easier in terms of like the rainbow colors, like the rainbow flag colors to be put on an armband, as opposed to what is a universal symbol for labor rights, like migrant worker rights and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
you can check a flag from the old Russia. There's a
you know China has entered the chat.
If you're looking.
Shout out to all our new Chinese listeners.
Don't cut off my bank account. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's a really good question. I really don't know why. It could. I mean, I'm
asking in the sense that I'm just asking in the sense that a like gay British person still has a very reasonable, generally speaking, lifestyle versus a Indian Pakistani labor in the Khalij. So if we're going, I don't know how we jump to this. How did we jump to the British gay person who just wants to be who wants to go out and party in Qatar, Why are we not like actually talking about the people building these? And it's also really funny that CNN's headquarters in Abu Dhabi will be criticizing the Qatar World Cup and the buildings they are building, not the building they are sitting in.
Well, there's that American dude who was not allowed into the US match because he was wearing a shirt that had the rainbow colors on it in a circle. And apparently he was banned from the stadium and he was arrested. And I don't know what's happened to him since, but obviously it got in the media, so maybe he's been released now. Here's the thing: the parallel that comes up to me when we talk about this. The thing is that everyone wants to talk about gay rights, gay lesbian rights, LGBTQ plus rights in Qatar and the Gulf in general, and the Greater Middle East, and even within like the African continent, because there are issues. I mean, the thing that I sent you guys about Piers Morgan saying 8 of the countries and I looked it up, 8 of the countries that are in the round of 32 in the current tournament outlaw homosexuality. Well, I'm going to list the countries for you. I'll do it for you right now. Cameroon, Ghana, Morocco, Senegal, Tunisia, Iran, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. We're not talking about countries with good track records in general. So that point by Piers Morgan to me was completely mute. But the thing is that there's still a conversation within North American sports, and we keep on hearing about this in England especially. I don't know how it's in Germany or Spain or France, like in Italy, the larger countries as well. There still is the discussion. If one of your teammates comes out as being gay, are you going to accept them in the dressing room? They're still having the discussion in these countries where they're talking about LGBTQ plus rights and all that kind of stuff, and criticizing Qatar for their track record, etc. I'm like, and it's related to the hypocrisy. Like the hypocrisy debate, I understand a lot of it, but some of it I just like, it's crap. And I think this is a part of the hypocrisy debate that is crap. Because these same countries that are still criticizing Qatar, and I get it, you still have more rights as a homosexual person or LGBTQ plus person in these other countries that I mentioned, like England, France, Germany, et cetera, than you would in Qatar. However, the fact of the matter is you have not perfected your stance. You haven't perfected your societal norms related to these issues, because it still is a debate as to whether or not, if a professional athlete comes out, how accepted that person will be. And the thing is, I hate when people use the word tolerance, because tolerance to me is not good enough. Tolerance just simply means that, fine, you're here, I'll tolerate you being around me, but I'm still going to judge you for who you are. Whereas full acceptance is like,
up with it. We're putting up
yes,
with it while we have to. But
whereas
we're not
for me, acceptance brings you to the full gamut of the other side. That basically says it's who you are.
Us and them. Yeah.
So for me, that debate is just hogwash. It's bullshit to me. Waseem looks like he wants to say something, but I don't know.
Yeah,
he's the wheel is turning.
Well, no, not that, like, I think I hear what you're saying, but when I think about tolerance and acceptance and stuff, like literally what I thought was about. So, okay, there's this philosopher called Rousseau, right? And he was a French philosopher, and he had discussed, I think it was probably in the 1800s or something. He was saying, he said that like freedom was the greatest like value. It was the biggest thing. Like freedom is like the thing that everybody should have, freedom. And if people don't want to be free, then it is your obligation to force them to be free.
I'm sorry, I have to jump in quickly because we're talking about freedom.
Okay.
I just got a text and I have to find the news. It's official. Breaking here, folks. United releases Ronaldo.
Oh.
Whoa.
Well, I guess he's found some freedom.
Yeah, sorry. I just saw it. I'm like, oh, geez, freedom. Where's he going?
Well,
I'll take him in Liverpool. I'll be more than happy to take him in Liverpool.
So
sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So freedom you gotta you have to force it is an obligation to force people to be free. And so with the one of the issues I think with that, I mean, it actually ties to the issue of mandates. So if you're mandating people to wear masks as an example, and so it becomes like I'm forcing you to be safe. And that I've trouble with the idea of and so that logic of forcing people to be free, one of the biggest the people that use that philosophy to build their philosophy was Hitler. So Hitler used that philosophy to describe to make it an obligation to cleanse society and to make sure that there's only free people and whatever. That this is an obligation for you to do for them to do that. And so it's also a weird problem because you can't forcing freedom seems like an oxymoron. Okay. And so with mandates, the problem with that is that you're forcing people. It's imagine a world where I forced everybody to eat healthy, right? And so I decide what healthy is, and then I force everybody to do it. And you don't necessarily, even though people would be healthier, would they be happier? Right? Sometimes you just want to have a greasy, a greasy meal. You want your tummy to hurt, right? It tastes good. You want to do that. And usually with mandates and things like this, it goes against the idea of you freely being able to make these choices as an individual. So the idea of the collective versus the individual. And making choices for the collective versus the individual. And so I think with freedom, the individual, and so similar to what we're talking about here in terms of tolerance and in terms of it's you can't force people to accept other people if they don't want to accept them. The only thing that you can do, and I can't force people to accept me if they don't want to accept me. You don't want to accept me? All right. I can't force you, because if I do, you'll just lie to my face and you'll pretend that you're accepting me, but inside you're not. We're not having an open, honest conversation, right? And so I feel there's really nothing that can be done on that front. And the only thing that can be done on that front is to dismantle hate as opposed to force freedom. So usually by providing empathy and logic, right? And it's extending empathy to other people, and everybody ends up in a particular position because of one thing or the other. And so and if you could feel for the fact that the things you have choices over, things you don't, and you try to expand that heart side of things, then I think we may be in better shape. But anything that's simply make something PC, make something that, we can't talk about this socially. And by doing that with all these topics, what we actually do is just push things under the rug, and things aren't out in the open. In the words that people use, or the things I don't think you can half-ass acceptance. I don't think you can just pretend to accept, and then that's enough.
No. For me, that's the
that's
empty
tolerance.
word that people use is tolerance, and I don't accept that. I don't accept tolerance at all. When I hear about people talk about religious tolerance, for example, and that doesn't mean anything. Does that mean religious tolerance? You tolerate the fact that I'm a different religion than you? That means that's bullshit to me. For you to really understand a standpoint, you have to see it from its eyes. So I always used to have, I guess you can say, multi-faith discussions with friends of mine of different religions. And the biggest point that I would always have to make is, because for me, coming from a Catholic school, I can easily put myself in a Catholic hat or a general Christian hat. I can do that no problem, and understand where they're coming from in terms of ideology, in terms of opinions on certain societal issues that are biblically based, in terms of their opinion being biblically based. But I'm but then I would say, when you're looking at my side of things, for example, you're just judging it based on that. You're not actually going from the baseline of what it says about itself. to understand. So like to really understand any religion in my mind is that you have to go to its base. You have to start from its perspective and put yourself in its perspective to really understand what it's saying about itself. So that's why I feel when tolerance is like, yeah, okay, fine, you exist and all, but I don't like you still. For me, it's not good enough. It doesn't go far enough for me.
It doesn't, and that's what corporate America has a problem with diversity, because they don't really understand it. They just think it's throw a couple colored people at the problem.
Yeah,
that's their solution, and that's not the answer. That's not what diversity is.
But it's like never going to come from them. It's never going to come from them. Like that's the thing. That's not how it works, right? Like acceptance is like starts with you, right? Like acceptance and understanding and empathy starts with you, and it doesn't actually start like out there. Like they can't. Like there's no way to force
it. It can't be forced upon you. There's no way to force acceptance of something on like, and that's why I feel like a lot of these campaigns, for example, like taking the knee and all that kind of stuff, I get it for its purpose of bringing attention to an issue. And that's how it all started with Kaepernick in the United States. But then I felt like when in England, when they started doing that in English football, I was like, this is so empty and baseless. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
To me, it didn't mean anything. And on top of that, the whole issue of it starting with Kaepernick in the United States, the reality as to why it was an issue in the United States compared to in England are two different histories, two different realities as to what brought that about. And I get it. England still has its issues with racial issues and racial problems and societal problems, and I get that. I understand that. But it's not like the Black population or the population that comes from African origin or the West or the West Indies or the Caribbean were living under Jim Crow laws, for example.
Well, I think it doesn't take long for like usually the best way for like the powers that be, let's say the corporates, to neutralize a grassroots movement is to adopt it as its own.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
it's the best way to to neutralize these like anything that is a threat to your power is to accept it as your own, and then it'll just ruin it.
Because when did UEFA's slogan of no to racism start? It started as a response to players in England starting to take the knee. Yeah.
And so then they accept it. And so then you're like, okay, so now they're doing something about it. And even in like what they're doing about it, you're like, well, what do you like? It's just the show. And that's what's crazy about the corporate like sort of overlords is that like they're inside, they're crazy. Like they're psychopaths, right? Like, that like they're psychopaths. So they'll do the show outside to show you that like, it's like the Davos thing, right? Like they go and they fly in to talk about climate change. But the amount of, like they're the biggest suckers of like carbon, and they're destroying the planet. Like they'll do this and this at the same time, and without any like it seems like shamelessly. And we've talked about this a lot on the show. So like I think like it's difficult to conclude at this stage, but I feel like I think we're talking about these issues, we're bringing them up, and we will continue to be distracted by the soccer. We will continue to be distracted by the football. I wish all the underdogs the best. Because then,
I just want to say,
then at least I feel that there's something happening.
I want to say in terms of giving credit where credit is due, and to whoever hears this, and I hope a lot of people in Canada hear this. The Canadian men's national team qualifying and making it to the World Cup is a wonderful, wonderful thing. However, I feel like, and it's been discussed, but I don't feel like it's been discussed enough, that a whole lot of that credit has to go to the Canadian women's national team, because they're the ones in what they did in their success over tournaments over the years, is that they really started to make a spark and started to generate interest in Canadian soccer at the national level. And the men, thankfully, just happened to get shit together in time for this World Cup to qualify. So I just don't want the the hard work and the accolades and the success that the Canadian women's national team achieved gets lost in this whole debate.
Go men.
All right. Thanks, y'all. See y'all next week.
Go Canada.
Peace, yo.
Peace.